Right, everybody, welcome to Remix Austin. First one of 2024.
Yep.
So it's exciting. Good showing. Thanks everyone for coming out. A lot of old faces and some not old faces or new faces, young faces.
Young faces.
Yes, a lot of young faces, a lot of old faces. I don't know. I'm Brooks. I am the developer relations manager at Remix, and been doing this meetup for like almost 2 years at this point. I think in April, I feel like was our first one at ETH, which is cool. Maybe we'll have cake or something. I don't know. But yeah, this is a meetup and I forgot to prepare slides at all. So I'm just going to talk for a second and just say that we do this meetup every first Wednesday of every month is what we kind of try to do. Really the idea is, yeah, just talk about Remix to show cool things that people built in Remix, which is a web framework in case you're unaware. Or to talk about specific strategies or libraries that you could use with Remix. Like tonight, Paul will talk about using Zod for form validation in Remix, because Remix relies very heavily on forms, but it doesn't have opinions on how you validate and try and get types out of those forms. So Paul's going to be talking about that, which would be super cool. Yeah, I'll just get the disclaimer out of the way. Not disclaimer, the ask. I'm always looking for speakers. I do think I have potentially a talk lined up. I don't know where Mark's on with that, but we'll talk. But anyway, I'm always looking for speakers. So if you've never given a talk, I think meetups are really great. Hi, frozen. You knew that was going to happen. Y'all aren't frozen though. Oh well. It'll just it just keeps resolving itself. I don't know. There's nothing to do about it. Yeah, if you've never given a talk, meetups are a great way to do that. If you have something cool, or if you even want to challenge yourself, like, oh man, I really want to learn something, but I just don't have the motivation to do it. I find that signing up to give a talk is a really, really good motivation, because then you'll know that you're what is going on? Just the side of me. I guess that's okay. All right.
That's what I can do for now.
That's all right. Yeah, anyway, it's good motivation and that won't disappoint me. Well, I'm sorry for the people online. Y'all are just getting a very fun experience. Cool. Yeah. So again, thanks everyone for coming. Yeah, Paul, if you're ready.
People, like Brooks said earlier, they're always looking for speakers. I always volunteer. So if you want to see less of me, please come up with a topic. I beg of you. My short story, I was not a developer by trade. I actually used to run a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu school, which is really far from development, but late in my 30s. I was like, you know what, this stuff is pretty cool. Let me jump into it, give it a try. Here I am. And one of the best ways I discovered to learn about topics is to give talks and then have people correct you, which is great. So today I'm going to talk about form validation with Remix and Zod. We're going to start with a very simple example. We're going to look at how typically you would do form validation in Remix, why using Zod. Then I'm going to show you how you could handle image validation in case you're trying to upload an image, and then I'll show you a quick demo. So Remix form validation, in the most basic sense, if you have a form with an input, right, you have the name attribute. Whenever you submit your form via the submit button, you're going to catch it. I put that slide in the wrong order inside the action. So here we're using form data.get, we're getting the email, and then we want to validate that email. And in my previous slide, I did something that is fairly common. People would just make these if-else statements and put their logic there, which is nothing wrong with that. And then you save your errors, you return those errors. So here you can see the return statement. We return the errors that we get from the validate, and then we are getting access to that data from using use action data, and then we are using it inside our form to show some sort of error message. And there's nothing wrong with doing that, but as your forms grow, or maybe you want an easier approach, this is when we would use Zod, because the problem as the forms grow, your validation logic grows as well. And so would it be awesome if there's an easier way? So last week, literally, I discovered there's Zod. You probably knew it existed. For me, it wasn't that long ago. So why use Zod? Zod allows you to define the schemas that you could run your validation against, which is pretty awesome. And I'll show you some very easy examples, so you always know the shape of the object you're going to get. And the most simplest implementation of Zod, you import Zod, you create your schema. Here we're just defining a basic string, and then you're able to use parse or save parse. If you're wondering what's the difference between parse And say parse, whenever you use parse, it will always throw an error. So you'd have to do try and catch. You'd have to handle that error. In my example, we're going to talk about save parse, which does not throw an error, but you get an object with the errors that you have. And that way you're able to display it in your UI. And inside you have a bunch of different primitives. The most basic one, string, number, begin, boolean, date, symbol, and so on. And on the right here, you see the string primitive with a bunch of methods that you have available. For instance, you could define the max number, the min number, or total length, or is it an email, is it a URL? And so instead of having to define that logic like we previously did in the if-else statement, you just get that out of the box with Zod. And here you see another example. You could do your check, but then you could also do a custom error message, and whatever you put in that message block, that will be the error message that you return. So fairly straightforward, very simple. So first, we're going to take a look at a very simple example. And so we have that same form with that email before we used our if check, but instead we're going to use Zod. So I imported Zod, and we're creating a validation schema, and it literally just says you're going to have an email. There's going to be a string, and there's going to be an email. That's literally all you need to do. Very basic schema. And we have our validate function, which I'm calling. And inside this validate function, I'm using the request object to get the form data. We're getting that email out of there. And then we're using schema.saveParse. We're passing that email, and that's based off the logic that we added here. Z string has to be an email. And like a magic, either say it is successful or not. If it's not successful, we are getting access to that error object, we're flattening, so we have a much more readable way to look at the errors. And we are returning it using the use action data. We have access to those errors, and we're able to display them in our code. And so a basic implementation, boom, we have the email. You type your email. If you press enter, it's like, hey, you got the email, perfect. You don't need that error. We check for password. Oh, it's not long enough. Add 2 extra characters. All right, very good. And so instead of using if and else, like I said, there's nothing wrong with it. Like, why would you use Zod? Well, maybe you have a lot of items in your form, like I do here, and you just don't want to make if and else statements for all of them. And so here I have a bunch of things that I'm checking, and I'll talk about the images in a little bit later, but you just define your schema. It's as simple as that. And then on the right, you see we validate against the schema. If you were wondering where the form items are coming, they're coming from my Remix application via the normal traditional data. And again, if it's not successful, we return the errors. And you more like, I have just Zod errors there. That's the most important one. For instance, in my case, I'm making an API call to a headless CMS. So if there's an error on that end, I didn't do it in this place, but I could handle those errors as well and return them if I have any. But anyway, if the form is great, no issues, and we go ahead and everything works. So outside of the things that we already saw, like all the basic primitives that you have, and actually they have a lot of stuff. So I definitely suggest go to zod.dev and read the documentation. But they have this very useful method called refine. So maybe there's something that doesn't really fit into what you want to check. So a lot of times if you're uploading files, you want to do some basic checks. So you could actually use the refine method. And the way it works, you pass the refine, it takes a function, and it'll either return true or false. If it's true, great, looks good. If it's false, or vice versa, get those confused, it'll return the message saying, hey, something that's not working. Here's the message, please fix it. And so as an example here, I have 2 types of files that I'm uploading. One is an image, and it's like an image of your face, so your avatar, and that should be a JPEG, a PNG, WebP, like those are the accepted files. And if you're wondering where I'm getting it, I have const accepted image types, and I have an array of those items, and that's what I'm checking. So if it's successful, it won't complain. If it's not successful, it'll throw that error. On the line above that, I'm checking if the size of the file is within the size that I want. I'm just saying, 5 megabytes. If anything more, I don't want any of that And then on the resume, I'm saying, you know what? I just want to accept PDF. So I'm following that same logic where I'm using refine, which basically gives me access to the thing that I want to check. And the first check I'm doing is, it doesn't have a file name. That's a basic assumption. Like if it has a file name, it must be a file. And then I'm checking the file size. Does it still fit into the 5 megabytes of allowed memory or like size, file size? And then I'm finally checking, is it a PDF? Or because if it's not, I don't want anything to do with it. So very basic, and I'm much rather kind of walk through the code. So here's the form that I have here. That's got a bunch of items. So if I click save right now, it's going to complain everywhere. And this is triggered through our side validation. So let's take a look at the code and just kind of go through the example. And could have done this done better and written better, probably, but we're just going to look at everything here in the one file. So on the top, importing SOD because we want to use it. The next thing I want to do is I want to create a schema. And so here inside this schema, I'm calling schema register, I'm defining all the items that you will find in our form, like the website, about, first name, last name, email. And to keep things simple, everything is a string in the form. And then we're getting to our images, which are kind of talked about. If something doesn't match the specific validation that you want, you could use the refine method and you could literally define what you want that validation to be. And so a lot of times people wonder, like, how do you check images and SOD? Well, this is one way of doing it. And if you take a look at the max file counts, I'm saying, hey, no more than 5 megabytes. Accepted image types, I'm saying for an image, it should be JPEG, JPG, PNG, web. And then for my accepted doc types for my resume, I only want, the PDF. And that's basically what's happening. And if you take a look at the form, it's just the standard stuff. If you take a look at image input, it's literally type file. I don't know why I did multiple, because I'm getting single image, but you could decide if you want to do multiple images, you could do that as well. And then inside the action, and you could slow me down if I'm moving too fast. Sometimes do that. We're doing very basic idea here. So one thing that I did here, actually, I did want to check if the form is multi-part, because you might be working with your Remix application. And yes, here I have one form, but you might have multiple forms, and some forms might be just regular forms and not be multiple parts. So for instance, if we take a look on my form here, I have ink type, multi-type form data, but I might have another form on this page, which might not be multi-type. And you know how I didn't do it in this example, but you might in your Remix application do a switch statement, and based on, submit or delete form, whatever it is, you decide what it is. And some of those forms might not be multi-part. So I decided in this example, even though I'm not really using it, I am checking, are we getting a multi-part form? If so, we're going to use this unstable parse multi-part form data. You're going to have to ask Brooks why it's called unstable. I just followed the documentation on this part. So if it is a multi-part, just set our form data to be multi-part. If not, keep it the normal way. We are using object form entries for getting the form data from our form, and we're just getting access to all those items. And then what I'm doing is, I'm sure there might have been an easier way, but I just went ahead and passed my items from the form that I want to check against my schema. So a schema register, that's a parse. I'm using that schema that I referenced above, and I'm getting the data from my forms. And again, once everything succeeds, this is not going to be called, but if it's not successful, it'll go ahead and return the errors. And what I'm doing is I'm getting those errors and accessing them from the use action data. And I have a very basic function here, which basically will take the error. Sometimes certain inputs might have multiple errors. So it's an array. So basically what this does, it goes through the array and just shows all the errors. The most basic sense here. And so if we take a look at the form, if I have none of the items, like if I click submit and it has errors all over the place, it'll show you. So here we have a valid URL, and string must contain at least 5 characters, and that's coming from my SOD validation. So if we take a look at our schema, for website, it has to be a string, it has to be a URL, and you can see that min characters allowed is 5. And if you don't add any custom errors, it's just going to show you the errors that it has. But if you pass a second object, you could put your message and with whatever custom error that you want, which makes it much easier and much faster to validate your forms. Because that way, instead of just thinking too much about it, you create your schema and then you test against it. So if we go ahead here, I could fill everything out. HTTPS. I don't know why I went the long way. Let's say strappy.io because it's the best headless CMS. Don't let anybody else tell you otherwise. And so if I click save, because that passes, it's not going to complain. Here I am, whatever, doesn't matter. Let's choose a photo. Fantastic. Let me use that photo. First name, Paul. I can't spell under pressure, so you're going to have to forgive me. The email, Bratslavsky. What's the name to spell under pressure? Little slip though. Right. And then if like I don't complete all the other, if I click save, it's just going to be like, hey, you don't complete all the other things. You still have places that you need to fill out. So somewhere in Texas, or whatever you spell that, it's fine. Be under state, Texas, zip 78641. And here I'm going to choose JPEG, which is not accepted. When I click submit, it says, hey, only PDFs are accepted, which we know our validation is working. So I'm going to make sure that I put a PDF, click open, click save. And once the form is submitted, it's going to go ahead and say, thank you, everything is great. And I didn't, I'm a lazy developer. So instead of like trying to handle, the file upload and all that stuff on my own, I just use Strappy. It allowed me to create a backend really quickly. And here I have my form data. Let me refresh. And so here's the submission that I just made. And so to me, using Remix, using Zod makes it very easy to validate complex forms, which may have way too many items that you need. And using Strappy as a backend just makes me work less hard. And so here we are. Any questions on what covered? Yes.
So the text that comes back there, the same was wrong with the field. If you wanted a different language, how would you do that?
So you could do, my brain is freezing right now, but you could use the internalization. So you would have to define it yourself. So you would have inside where you have the error message, you might have an object with different languages and all the messages that you want, and based on the language, it will return the appropriate message. But I didn't go that route because it would be more work for me. So
you showed the refined method. Can that only be chained off of the any type, or can it be chained off of other types like string?
I didn't try it. I just went with any. I'm assuming it probably would work because what it would do was just pass whatever after the string is successful. It'll just continue to pass down the chain. But to be honest, I didn't try it, but I'm assuming you should be able to. Cool. Yeah.
And then so if the first function returns false, whatever the second argument is returned, whether that's an object, a string, it doesn't
Right.
matter.
They'll still go through all of them. So like, for instance, if actually like it might probably fail. Again, that's a very question to try. So I'm assuming if I don't provide like refine it, there's no file which has the name, it's not going to get the next one.
But that was my next question, actually. If your UI showed essentially every failing case for
Right.
the inputs, is there a way to cut that off and be like, only show me the first failing case?
That's another good question. I didn't get that far ahead. Probably can. You could probably do that. Yeah. So, I mean, I could have, for instance, inside the error, I'm sure you could do it in Zod. Haven't looked into it, but I could have inside my function somewhere here.
Are you in a position where you could make a small edit and then test it out real quick?
Yeah.
Okay, so let's take the .min. Do like a .min 5 and then a .min 3, so that they both would fail if you type in a single character, and then see if it gives you both messages or just one.
Yeah, no, here I think it's like, so you said .min 3 and .min 5. Yeah.
Something just to,
Do it smaller even, or yeah.
yeah, just arrange that.
Yeah, let's test it out. And I love I love to have questions because I'd like it to be a conversation, so I could actually learn something as well. So if I click submit, it's gonna go ahead and say invalid. So let me put, so it says 3 characters, but let's try it. Let's see, so it hit this one, hit URL, it hit this. Max didn't do
That was
anything.
supposed to be another min.
So 2 mins.
So there are 2 things that it would hit on.
Yeah, so it hit on.
Well, it's already hitting on the URL, so I think that kind of already answers that question.
Yeah, so I hit on URL, hit min, but Max did not because, let's do 2 items here, click save. So actually, yeah, it will
Yes,
hit all of them,
excellent.
so that's
Okay,
kind
cool,
of
thank you.
cool.
This FYI, 'cause I'm fairly familiar with that. one.
Nice.
It's error messages is what you get back.
Right.
So you get all of them. Right. So to your point,
So
if you only want one,
only show.
you just pop the first one off.
Yeah, so what I was gonna say, kind of building on that, I do have that functions at the bottom. If I just go.
Errors, plural.
Yeah, so you could probably define some logic inside, like field error, just to be like, hey, show me the top or the last error here, rather than doing a Zod. But I'm sure there's got to be a way in Zod as well. Yeah. Any other questions? Yes.
I just mentioned something about the refine statement for the earlier question, because I've used the refine on an object, where the object contained 2 dates, the start date and end date for my form, and I needed to make sure that the end date came after the start date, so I was using the refine function. So you can use it on other.
Okay, nice.
Not just z.any, I'm using z.object, and it's checking that the properties of the object are complying with my rule.
Yeah, no, it's very
So
cool.
to do cross-field validation, you need to pass in an object.
I don't know if you need to, my whole schema is in an object, and at the end of that definition, there's a dot chained on dot refine where I can make sure that if there are fields that are dependent on each other, like an end date should clearly come after a start date for something, then you can do that in the refine. And you can do it, yeah, I think I've even got other things commented out right now that are further refinements to make sure that the fields play nice with each other, or the values for the fields
Oh, that's awesome.
play nice.
It is FYI, that is the probably the most important use case of refine. Because refine, so hey, I should back up. Zod is like in love with TypeScript. So types. That's Zod's mantra. So anytime that refine is typed in a way where no matter what you do it on, it's going to be typed. So if I do it on a number, the refine, like go to your refine method real quick. So he's got file. He did it on an any. So file is being typed as an any. You switch that any to a number. Now that file thing is going to be a number. So it's specifically designed so you can refine every freaking type. And the most common use case is what you talked about, right? Like you refine an object. Now I can do cross field and say this date behind that date, or this password and this, what is it, confirmation password don't match, and stuff like that. Good. Yeah, the most. Yes.
Can you call parse or say parse on the client too, to give a better experience to change?
Yeah, you should be able to.
Yeah.
A very common approach. I don't know if you all use Chat-C and UI. So they have React hook form as part of their form stuff. And so you would do exactly what I did here, client side. And you'll have that better user experience. And I could have, done it here as well. That would require using UseEffect, which I didn't want to.
There's another library called Conform. that's,
Yes.
like, really well built for kind of being able to do both of them.
Yeah, that's awesome.
And it really heavily leans on Zod. I think it has Yap as well, but.
Yeah,
That's cool for Zod.
nice. Yeah, no, I think
go
one
back
of
to
you,
Conform.
somebody I think you should be able to like throw your hat and whoever catches it, it's like automatically commits to give a talk. But yeah, no, I know some of you already gave talks. I was gonna say, if you're coming hang out with us, don't let anything hold you back from giving a talk, because I'm gonna say if I could get up here and sweat underneath here and not cry, you could do as well. So
So add to your.
yes, add as much as you need. I love it.
Your question there. You're talking about server client, right? There's a little bit of a footnote when you start doing it. It's, you got to be able to share the code. And Zod makes it easy to do that because somewhere like we have our schema, I forget what variable you call it.
Yeah, you could do like get first schema from the,
Well, the schema register,
Yeah.
whatever you call that variable, right? It's just, we just now have to share it. So depending on your framework, I think Remix makes it very easy to do this. Other frameworks maybe not as well, but it's just, now you got to share it. But there's also a runtime thing. It's not a build time. So it's got to run. Right. So you can't, so you just got to be aware of that. And then I've seen situations where people can't share it. So now they have two, and now they change first name to be a max 30, but they don't do it on the back end. Right? And now you're in a world shirt, right? And then you asked a question earlier about, I forget exactly what it was, but he's using refine here. There's another method called transform. So let's say,
What's available, form data Boolean situation.
exactly, right? So if I can't come, oh, there we go, we got zip. So he's got a string, maybe that makes sense because it's a text field and it's going to be a string. We want to validate the string, but then really in our database, maybe we're weird and we're just only care about American zip codes, I guess. And so we're going to use numbers. So now I could slap a transform at the end of that and transform the string. And I know if I do it after the max, I know it's going to be a min of 5. I know it's going to be a max of 10 length, right? I'm going to know certain things about it because it's going to do that first and then go to my transform. And now I can change the type. And now when I do parse, boom, zip code's a number.
So the raw data goes in.
Gets validated as raw data, transformed right before it gets spit out. Gotcha. Okay.
It's worth noting that form data is always strings.
Yep.
Yeah.
So if you had a number, even if it was a number page, you would have to, transform it, or when you're converting it into the schema, you have to convert it to a number.
I've used a library called Zod Form Data to help with taking the raw form data, doing those transforms, and then validating appropriately. But fries my brain sometimes because I'm not sure what exactly it's feeding into the validators. Is it feeding in the strings, or is it feeding in like the transform version? So.
Any other questions? You all been awesome. Thank you so much.
If you want to learn more from Paul, he did a course on Free Code Camp, like a remix crash course. So if you're new to remix, and you like video tutorials, that's kind of your speed of learning. This is definitely a very solid, just free resource out there, or maybe you know someone, you can pass this along. So definitely, I didn't look at all the comments, and YouTube is notoriously a place that can have some negative comments, but the first 2 were very positive. So
Bob and my sister.
Like, you have no idea how much you've saved my life. Like, I'm now making like $300,000 a year. No, but it was very positive and a lot of positive comments. So, and then also Paul has his own channel, so I'll plug that as well because he's not going to. So if you like YouTube,
Did it again.
he's on there. Yeah. And then I'll plug myself as well about Remix and Strappy. So if you really do want to figure out what Strappy really means, we had a collab on that on the Remix YouTube channel. So there's all my plug-in. Sweet. Well, thanks, Paul, for joining. Sorry for the people online that you can't see us. That's a bit of a bummer. It's okay. We're almost done with it. But yeah, thanks everyone for coming. We have this building for like another hour, so yeah, definitely hang out. I'll be here. Chat about anything, meet new people if you didn't meet anyone. There's still more food out there. I'm also okay. I didn't make a form for this, so we're gonna do very informally. I had another remix organizer pitch like this idea of something that he's done with his meetup, and I thought it was kind of interesting. So I wanted to see just like show of hands, does this sound interesting or not? Which I know is like the worst way to pull people because then there's all the bias and everything. But I'll just describe it, then I'll ask the show of hands. What they do every once in a while, maybe every like 3rd or 4th one, is they do a like a hackathon. And the way they do it is they have kind of predefined like group leaders who are kind of like prepared a little bit to kind of lead the group. So it's not just like total like free for all, like come in and feel like you have to know remix. And then you kind of break up into appropriate size groups, so maybe 5, 6 people, and just work on something for the full like hour and a half, 2 hours, whatever. Show of hands. Again, I'm not going to be offended. Does that sound like something interesting this group would like to do in the future? Okay, that's about half the group. Cool. Thanks. That's helpful. Okay. Well, with that being said, and a thumbs up online. Thank you, Will. Appreciate it. With that being said, I'm going to turn off the Zoom. Thank you, everyone who joined us online. Thank you again, Paul, for giving your talk. And yeah,